4488, the field is closed right now. We've had an aircraft accident, so the field is closed right now. We're not pushing anybody back or moving anybody right now.
This morning, flights at Reagan National Airport in D.C. are grinding to a halt in the wake of a tragic crash. A Black Hawk helicopter collided with an American Airlines flight out of Wichita as the plane prepared to land at the airport. Thank you for starting the day with us, Kansas. I'm Eddie Randall.
And I'm Alexis Padilla. We've been tracking this story since we first learned about the crash Wednesday evening, and we will have continuing coverage throughout the morning.
We have a team of live reporters following every angle of this developing story. Let's break down what we know so far. The helicopter had 3 people on board and the plane was carrying 64. New this morning, U.S. Figure Skating confirms several members of their skating community are among that number.
The organization says that includes athletes, coaches, and family members who were, quote, returning home from the National Development Camp held in conjunction with the U.S. Figure Skating Championships in Wichita, Kansas. Russian state media also confirmed Russian skaters and coaches were on board as well. 2 sources close to the situation confirmed the total number of bodies that have been uncovered from the Potomac River where the aircraft crashed is approaching 20. It is still not clear what caused the wreck, but an official says the helicopter was on a training flight when it happened.
And reports show leading up to the crash, air traffic controllers cleared the plane to land at Reagan National. Less than 30 seconds before the crash, the controller asked the helicopter pilot if they saw the plane, then told the pilot to go behind the American Airlines flight. The crash happened seconds later. This video from EarthCam captures the moment of that collision. You can see it right there.
All flights at Reagan National Airport in D.C. are halted right now. The airport is not expected to resume flights until at least 11 this morning Eastern time.
And right now, Eisenhower Airport is opened and most flights out of Wichita are still scheduled.
KSN Zena Taher is live at the airport. Zena, you've been there all morning. Can you describe what is the mood right now among the workers and passengers?
Yeah, Eddie, Alexis, it's definitely a feeling of tension that we picked up on here as we've been here the past hour and a half. We've talked to a lot of people actually boarding or getting ready for American Airlines flights. That line was a lot longer earlier this morning. People telling us that they were worried for their community and for the people who were hurt. And I spoke with a few people who say their connecting flight to Dallas was first delayed, then canceled. They say now it's leaving their trips in limbo. They're still trying to figure out what their other options are. One of those passengers we spoke with says he found out about the plane crash yesterday around 10 p.m.
Pretty soon after it happened, it was all over the news stations and stuff, and just looking at the footage that they had released and the limited information they had at the time, it was pretty bizarre to see some of the footage and what had happened out in D.C.
He says even with his flight schedule up in the air, it's hard not to be nervous about boarding a flight after what happened last night. We'll be here throughout the morning giving you updates. Here for you, Zena Taher, KSN News 3.
And I love what you said, Zena. There are people coming to board their own flights and just worried about other people. And that is one thing that the Wichita community does in a time like this. They all come together. Thank you, Zena. And this morning, a lot of Kansas families are learning the details of this tragedy, and they're waiting to find out what happened to their loved ones.
American Airlines set up a number for those people to call and find out updates on their loved ones. It's right there on your screen. It's 800-679-8215. We also have it on our website, ksn.com. Federal officials held a news conference in Washington, D.C. within hours of the crash. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, who just took over the position on Tuesday, said he talked with President Donald Trump in the Situation Room, along with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth.
We are going to offer full support to those on the ground, to the mayor, but also to the NTSB, who is going to be conducting the investigation in this matter. We are going to provide all the support that's necessary.
The National Transportation Safety Board already has a GO team investigating the crash.
And responses are pouring in from Kansas leaders in the wake of the tragedy. Nearly every Wichita City Council member was seen heading up the stairs at Eisenhower National Airport Wednesday evening as they learned of the news. Council member J.V. Johnston says this plane crash is going to have an impact on people in Wichita for a very long time.
It's just a sheer tragedy. We're all going to know, most people in Wichita are probably going to know somebody on that flight. a family member, a co-worker, a friend of a friend. So it's going to be a really tough time for a lot of Wichitans coming ahead.
He says the ICT's connection to the aviation industry makes the deadly collision much more difficult. We will hear more from city leaders later this morning. They have a scheduled briefing at 8 a.m. And federal lawmakers went to Reagan National Airport and spoke on this situation. This happened overnight.
Our Capitol Bureau Chief Rebecca Chung joins us live from Eisenhower Airport. Rebecca, what have you learned?
Lawmakers here in the area are also grieving this morning. They're also sharing their thoughts on that tragic crash. Some family members also grieving. We heard from Kansas Senators Roger Marshall and Jerry Moran earlier today. They were in D.C. when it happened. Here's what they had to say.
Again, we will do everything we can to make certain that we're supportive of the rescue efforts, and we'll do everything we can to make certain that our subcommittee and Congress is engaged in what needs to take place following the outcome of this evening and this month's kind of investigation.
I want the folks to back home to just know that we care, that we love them, and that this is a time when we'll have to join arms together and help each other out. We've been through things like this before, through tornadoes and floods and things, but it's really hard.
Now, the governor is also speaking on this. She sent us a statement yesterday saying in part that her thoughts are with those involved. We're now reporting live in Wichita. I'm Rebecca Chung.
All right, Rebecca, thank you.
The CEO of American Airlines, Robert Isom, released a video statement following the crash. He said the airline is cooperating fully with the National Transportation Safety Board's investigation and that it will continue to provide all the information it can.
Our cooperation is without pause, and we want to learn everything we can about today's events. That work will take time, but anything we can do now, we're doing. And right now, that means focusing on taking care of all passengers and crew involved, as well as their families.
The FBI is also assisting local agencies in the response.
And these images here are among the first of the wreckage in the Potomac. As emergency crews continue their searching, aviation experts are working to provide perspective. Steve Cowell has more than 18,000 hours of pilot experience. He says that one thing the NTSB investigators will be looking at is the plane's terminal collision avoidance system, or TCAS, which all commercial airplanes have.
However, when you get below a certain altitude, the TCAS system will not give the pilots it's called resolution alert. In other words, they will be able to move vertically, either climb or descend to avoid the collision. In this case, the Black Hawk helicopter was from behind, and it was so quick that there was virtually no chance for any sort of a deviation by the pilots to avoid this situation.
Cowell said even for a private pilot to fly in at Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport, they need to undergo special certification. And the Wichita community is coming together to support people affected by the crash.
The Kansas Aviation Museum says a prayer vigil will be held today at noon in the Wichita City Council chambers. It says everyone is welcome to join in and support the community.
We will have continuous coverage of the deadly crash throughout the morning, and you can also find full details in this story on ksn.com.